seasonal, and I think that's definitely potentially a negative of it. But I think there's a lot more benefits than what I'm hearing, and that's why I say who writes the narrative, because I could sell this to Complete Streets and explain to them why this is the best project in the state. It just depends who writes it, how they say it. When you talk about downtown and how it touches the most people, arguably our most dense part of town and our highest population lives in proximity to this recreational spot. We have Emerald Place, we have Tri-Town, we have Whalum Luxury. So basically all the apartments can walk to this recreation site. And I remember the first Complete Streets meeting I went to years ago as a citizen, a couple of years ago at least, talk a lot about like traffic, recreation, walkability, all the things coming together. And this one has always reminded me the most of what I first heard, especially safety. And it says, is this a high crash location? I don't go there often. I go there 2 weeks a year. And I've seen 2 accidents where cars were sideswiped by somebody whipping around Prospect Street. So I've not been any place else in my life where I've seen 2 accidents in the same place that occurred while I was there. So I guess I just, in terms of marketing and selling a project, I feel like this one, if I wrote it, would be like, hey, this $400,000 would be well spent here, and these are all the ways it would help the community. So just for my long-term, I like to be super consistent in my long-term advocacy for the town beach. It's a very dangerous, non-accessible place, but it's a wonderful part of the community, lots of swim lessons. So I would just like to say that there's a lot of value in looking at that place as something that does check off a lot of the boxes, probably more than we're saying, depending upon how you market it.
And I want to tag on along to what you just said, because I think you took many words right out of my mouth. Looking at the Whalum area, looking at our town, I mean, that's the one part of town that has grown the most recently. So it would seem to me that we need to do more in that part. Now, I was just looking at, does this project improve safety or accessibility within a quarter mile of a senior destination? Would senior housing be considered a senior destination? Because okay. Yeah. So over there, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I think we do have a designation of senior housing in that area, which would make sense. I mean, we've added over 1,000 people into,
I don't think there's any. Quarter mile is not very far at all.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any senior, dedicated senior housing in that area.
Or I thought in their development there was a certain percentage of seniors. They had a...
Nothing,
no.
It's just apartments.
Okay.
Tri-Town, the new...
Tri-Town, that's right.
Yeah, Tri-Town is more than a quarter mile away.
Yes, which is more than a quarter mile away. That's right.
I'm here.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. I understand Mrs. Adams' passion for this. She's been very consistent with this. I also supported this initially. Some of us took a walk down to that area. And I like the idea that you could actually go from Summer Street with the new sidewalks to the Whalum sidewalk, and then we could install a sidewalk along Emerald Place where they have a grass public way. I don't know how they get out of doing the sidewalk there. But then it would connect. And also a sidewalk down on Prospect Street. But that's where it ends. Because and it needs more thought, I believe. I think it needs some more engineering. Because when you build a sidewalk and the sidewalk is proposed to go up against the fence, plus or minus, along the beach area, correct me, Bill, it's 5 feet. Right. Okay, it's 5 feet. That's the sidewalk. Then you're going to have curbing to hold the sidewalk in, and obviously you're not going to pour it or fabricate it right next to the wire of the fence. So a safe estimate is 6 feet from the fence, which effectively eliminates the parallel parking on that side of the road, because we don't have enough lane width to have the sidewalk, parking, lane width, curb line. It doesn't fit. I think that we need to be creative. I think the project definitely has legs. I see the need for it, spent a lot of time down there. It could go along with perhaps a paving program on Whalum Road, as I suggested with Main Street. Maybe it's something that we could do privately, but it needs, like the intersection at Northfield and Oak, it needs more thought. The lady from MRPC who's been very helpful, said, Sherry Bean, yeah, been extremely helpful. And the hard cold fact is it's 9 to 10 weeks with the beach being open, right? This doesn't mean that it's not important for 9 or 10 weeks. I get that. But when you come up against this other competition in the state, she said to me, quite frankly, she said they're not going to look favorably on something that is just affected, positively for 9 or 10 weeks. And so I think we're sort of behind the 8 ball there. I'm
So
sure
the town has
Mrs.
to
Adams
figure it out then,
could
right?
write a wonderful a narrative, as she says. And there's a lot of sentiment. There's a lot of sentiment at that town beach, and for the beach to continue as is and improve. And I think we can do that. We already have sidewalks at Whalum. We already have sidewalks at Summer Street, Whalum. We can go across the intersection there. Electric Ave is going to be paved next year, so we're going to have to redo all those handicap ramps at the intersection. That's part of it. We're going to pay from the rotary. The gas company is going to pay from the rotary to the lights. And so what we would be left with is a sidewalk on a grassy area and a sidewalk down Prospect Street, if we, to do it in-house, which isn't insurmountable. But as I said before, not to be redundant, we really need to look at what are we trying to accomplish at the beach. Do we want everybody to walk to the beach? In a perfect world, yeah, that'd be great, but people drive. And if you do the math with the sidewalk, the travel lane and whatnot, we really need to give that some more thought. And I think we should.
So Jack, out of curiosity, I mean, could this project be rephrased to be a connection from Wallace Park over to the new developments near the Rotary?
You know what? I've taken
Just
part
have an
in it
extension
with you
to the
folks,
beach?
just as we have. And then we turn it over to professional consultants so that they put it in the language that's most acceptable through the application process. Could we word it that way? I couldn't give you a good answer. This thing about, it seems, when you say it checks, it seems almost cliche, it checks more boxes.
Yeah.
Well, I've been around just long enough to know that the people that review this, that's exactly what it is. It checks more of they're saying our boxes, their boxes. So they like to eliminate projects. Sometimes they eliminate them all. I know one thing that Rich didn't mention was in this round of applications, you can only apply if you have not received any money in the past, which does knock down. Somebody like Leominster will apply for everything. They're very good at it. But see, they can't apply because they got the first complete streets check a couple of years ago. So, I mean, it's not much, but it's a better chance. I'm not a gambler, but if you take out half the population in there, it increases your odds. I'm getting long-winded.
Does that always happen, or is it just this time round?
What's that?
That people who have received money are ineligible for this round?
The first couple of years, no, you could apply a couple of times. Beverly got 2, a bunch of
So
communities
that's a
got 2.
new criteria
Yeah,
to try to
because
spread the money around?
Right, because initially, they were trying to get people to sign up to adopt complete street policies within their communities. So, look, I think everybody recognizes that complete street principles are important. We can all wrap our arms around that. But I think most communities adopted a complete street policy and have been going through this because there might be a few bucks around to do some local work.
Right.
And so as the program got more and more popular, and the money became less and less available, they came back and said, hey, you know what? Some of these communities have gotten a couple. If you got it before, don't apply again. We want to spread it around a little bit.
Okay,
So
so that's a new criteria that happens every year
Yeah.
at this point.
And just, again, as I mentioned earlier, these could be, any project that a community has is generally is a priority project, it's important to the community, that sort of thing. Our job is to tell you, based on our experience, even though that's a great project, the beach project, and you'd like to see it happen, based on our experience, it's not going to score as well. What was the bike connection, right? A rail trail connection. We figured, wow, pedestrians, bikes, this didn't score well, for whatever reason.
Do they, when you provide these submit these applications, do they provide any feedback other than, no, it's funded or not funded?
We've had communities call and actually say, so the city planner in Beverly actually called, so what could we have done better? Well, we can't tell you that.
Okay.
That was the response.
That's
We
fair
were like,
enough. And in your estimation...
I heard that, I was like, what?
In your estimation, or are there statistics that show how many times, you said some instances of people applying 4 times. One, is there an average that a project gets submitted?
The problem, I think, with the scoring
Well,
is...
I mean, obviously there is an average. The question is, do you know what the average is?
The scoring is almost like watching, the aerial snowboarding that you see on TV, and the guy said, and someone gave him a 5 and a 2, and I'm like, how did they score that? I think some of it is, I think they look at the boxes, and I think a little bit is arbitrary. It's how someone looked at something, because we've submitted projects.
So we'd do better if this project got more air, is that it?
Yes, sort of, like I'm giving you.
May I ask a question?
Some of the projects, as I said, it depends on how somebody is looking at it, which is why what we've learned is that we try to embellish a little bit on the description of the project. It's showing which boxes are checked, but we're also trying to embellish a little bit on the narrative,
Well,
why
the
it's
Village
important.
Area Memorial Drive thing, the Boys and Girls Club is in there too. You haven't mentioned that.
They have a good sidewalk.
That was in there.
Maybe why.
What was?
Boys and Girls Club.
On Memorial Drive.
The crossing.
Wait, it says senior playground? All right, so we should put that in there.
Yeah, I think it was in the narrative that was,
Oh,
the narrative that was submitted, not the prioritization plan.
May I ask a question?
It's not on here, but it's with the narrative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was in there.
In terms of there being potentially up to $400,000 available, if you look at these 4 items, if you dropped off item 8, which we obviously had lower on our prioritization plan that was made from all the meetings in public safety, and you did project 1, 3, and 4, which would be some town center and Whalen Beach, the total request would be $340,000. Which is below the ask. So in terms of looking at it like just resubmitting these town center requests as one large clump, I feel like if we included the Whalum one as item 3, which obviously was high up on our priority at the time, 1, 3, and 4, not sure what 2 was, just curious, but and we slash 8 for now, it would be interesting because then you're putting the ball in their court in terms of how they decide they want to do it. Maybe they would feel really awesome about our recreation connection we're making in our highest density part of town.
And looking
I like sales and marketing, so we're but anyways, it comes to $340,000. So I've been advocating for so long for a little bit of something in Whalum, and when we talked about doing our walkability studies, we even had some comment of sorts that it would be dangerous to do the walkability study in Whalum, which is ironic because there isn't great connectivity, but there's so many things to walk to. The CVS, restaurants, new gas station, there are some sidewalks there, but if you could really hone in on that area, there's a lot of development, not just residential, but also commercial, and there's some recreation points that aren't connectable. And I think we could ask for it and still have a lot of these town center improvements by dropping 8, which is lower on the priority score, and plugging in 3. And then when we submit it, well, lo and behold, maybe they'd think it sounded really super, and then I'd be really happy.
And as far as the deal goes,
So you do realize, though, that they could pull it out?
Yes, or they could say yes, and we just won't know until we try.
Right.
That area.
I think the reason we have this bundled together is because it's all in the same area.
Right, that's what I was gonna say.
But did they require that people submit
They don't
one
require
dense
anything. It's
area of
just
request?
based on our judgment in working with other communities and submitting other applications that have gotten funded and other applications that have not. It's better to bundle stuff together let's look more favorably.
And I know there's a sentiment in town that we often focus on town center or focus on our schools, and I think it's just a nice gesture to put in projects that are not focused on one specific area and put a little bit of thought into another area. I mean, the Prospect Street situation I find highly dangerous, which is why I advocate so often for it. It's just a really difficult place to unload children, but it's a really wonderful place to get swim lessons, et cetera. So I don't see why we wouldn't consider doing our higher priority items when they fit within the budget request amount that we have.
It's a valid point, but it's not, and we could do that. Based on our judgment, it's not going to score well.
But
just
we
said
already
it's a nice
submitted
gesture.
1, 4, and 8, and they failed, so I'm just thinking of shaking it up and seeing how round 2 goes.
And we've submitted, as Rich said earlier, we've submitted identical packages 4 times. They haven't changed a thing and just resubmit it, and then they got approved. So it's not like it's not like this was looked on unfavorably and we shook it up and now they're going to say yes. It's not I don't think it's a factor in their decision making. And then the point about the sentiment of we've always focused on downtown, it goes back to it touches the most people.
But that's up for debate, because with the density in Whalum, I would advocate that there's a lot of people affected by a project in that area. And then the Memorial Drive right now isn't really a road for traffic. And so in terms of safety, I think right now there's a safety problem on Prospect Street with the beach right now, whereas Memorial Drive isn't really much of a throughway. It's very gently used by vehicles other than to the senior center. And so in terms of current safety, I just think, it's ranked 3. So, I'm advocating for it like I feel like a lone ranger here, but at some point, those big complete street meetings that had public safety and everybody at them, this town beach item was highly advocated for by public safety, et cetera, and I don't know why we're ignoring its rank.
We're not ignoring the rank. Our rank has nothing to do with the likelihood of the state funding it. They could care less.
How do we make our ranks,
By the way,
though?
these aren't ranked by first, second, third, fourth. They call it rank, but it's just how they're listed.
Yeah,
There's no specific rank to this.
I have a question about how good of a deal these are. So looking at the Whalum project, just some simple math, and you just help me understand, please. The town portion in the Whalum project would roughly be 21% of the project, but in the others, on alternative 1, it's 62.9, 60%, and 50%. So how do we figure those numbers
It's
out?
based on what is an acceptable use of complete street funds. Certain things, complete streets, you cannot use for. So for example, paving, you can't use complete streets money for paving. You can't use complete street money for drainage. So there's certain things that you can't use complete street money for. However, when you do a complete street project, oftentimes those components of the project a town is going to want to do. So we include those in the estimate in terms of what the total project value is. As Jack mentioned earlier, he's going to have to pave these streets anyway. So what this does is it allows him to leverage complete street money with his paving program and get a more comprehensive project. Has nothing to do with, we got to put this much town money in and we got to put this much. It's just based on the work, the necessary work, and it's based on what complete streets will fund. There's certain restrictions, certain work that's non-participating, paving being one of them.
All right. So
It does make the Whalen project look very appealing,
It's less town money, but,
because it's a lot less town money.
or state money, maybe.
Okay, so just to keep this on track here, we have to make a decision for this because our next meeting isn't until past the due date. So we get today to make a decision. So just, not that it's urgent, but it's urgent. So, I'd like to hear from the board in very small snippets down the line what you'd like to do. Now, again, nobody in this room, from what I understand, knows how they're going to score it or whether we're going to have funding. So you could switch things around all you want, and it doesn't make your playing hand any better because nobody knows how they're judging these and what's likely to get funded or not.
The element of mystery.
Other than what?
I said it's the element of mystery.
Yeah, I'm sure the people who make the decisions know, but they're certainly not telling anybody else. So, start from the end of the table. Mr. Jeffries.
Yeah, so I think that first, I trust your training and experience in this area. I don't have any reason to doubt that you guys know what you're talking about and that you're trying to do what's in our best interest of trying to put together something that can get through. I would urge, though, a change, and the alternative that's consistent with what Selectman Adams has suggested, that would put Whalum into the plan. Because I think that, we have to, going down that area, I really just strongly believe that, even if we think it may not get through as a priority, I think and I hear what you're saying based on your experience, it's good to package it together to make it something that's digestible for other people. But as a safety improvement project, even with children involved, I really strongly think that we have to do something in Whalum. And if this isn't the project for it, then, it's not the project for it. And, that it is what it is. But I would like to see Whalum as part of what we're putting out.
Okay, but we can't put it in without removing something else. So I'm assuming that you have something else that you'd like to remove.
Removing 8.
Okay. Mrs. Adams.
Yeah, I think I advocate heavily for the Whalum based on the concept of touching the most people. I think within the past decade, and certainly anybody who's grown up here, that the most development and the most change has happened in the Whalum area. And I think from a municipal perspective, then we should put something in that direction. Wallace Park improvements were wonderful, but mostly driven by a citizen. I think it would be a nice gesture to focus a project there from the town. So I would do the same. I would drop 8, and it's actually requiring less town money and potentially gaining a lot of this Complete Street grant money for some potentially good outcomes.
Mr. McQuaid.
While I absolutely agree with Whalum being a worthwhile project, I don't think it's right for this Complete Street application. I don't think it meets this criteria or the story that we need to sell to the state. And if you were going to remove one, I would absolutely not pick number 8 to do it. That is the most trafficked area out of any of these, as far as children after school crossing Main Street. And I see kids there every single day, all the time.